Good morning, day 290. Woo! We started the book of Galatians this morning, chapters 1 and 2. I'm titling today, Patience is a Virtue. And if you read it, these two chapters, chapters, because it's a book and a chapter, right? You might be like, where'd you get that from? So Paul is writing another letter to another church, and he's talking about the temptation that they've fallen under, how sneaky the law is and how it just sneaks back in and we don't even know it. And how he was able to sort of be free from it and stay free from it. And what I saw in him, and I think this was what God knew that he needed right away, was to work on his patience. So, and he talked about staying away from Jerusalem, where probably the temptation for him to fall back into being held prisoner by the law and not losing his freedom, even in the name of Christ, that he needed to stay away from Jerusalem, which is really interesting. I study a lot about brain science and habit science and how our brain works and how to work with it so that we can set ourselves up for long-term success and changes that we want to see in our life and put new habits in place and how to get out of old ones. And lots of things are habits. Thinking is a habit. How we think, our beliefs, how it lives out, it's all habit. And sometimes we tend to limit our understanding of habit to, just the things we kind of do. But it's thoughts as well and belief systems. And Paul practiced being a zealot, persecuting believers for a long time, and he was brought up in a very strict Orthodox, Jewish belief system that he believed. He was practiced in that. He had habits around that. And in order to, once he mentally knew, okay, I'm free, he accepted grace and the love and the message of Christ, he removed himself. It said he stayed away for 3 years. He went to Damascus, and then he went, where else did he go? Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, not only did he leave, but it says that he stayed away for a period of another 14 years. And it doesn't give us time frames in between that. So I'm ballparking 20 years in general that he removed himself. That, to me, patience. He was working on his patience. He knew he needed to work on it. God knew he needed to work on it. And then through time and through patience and his faith growing, his freedom, his ability to walk in freedom, live it out wherever he went. And he went first to the Gentiles. Then he was ready to come back to Jerusalem, to his people, the Jews. And then he was also able, because his confidence grew, because he practiced, he was patient, he allowed all of that to just be who he was. He was a new creation in Christ. And even though we have that newness as a new baby believer, it has to grow into maturity. So he allowed himself that, and then he came back as that mature, confident authority even to the Jews, a free Jew. And he saw some things there that were like, wait a minute, you all are bringing the law back in. This is not right. This is false. You guys are thinking that you're being free in Christ and you're practicing some of it, but you're still trying to do it within the law. That's no bueno. And he was able to authoritatively speak to that because he had put himself in a position, a way, patiently letting himself grow into the person that God needed him to be. He needed to be to go back to Jerusalem. And it gives a specific example of Peter also. He observes Peter, so they're having dinner with the Gentiles. It's great. Peter's comfortable, good. But then he goes and then some of his friends come in, and they're like, and they're Jews. And they're like, you just had dinner with some uncircumcised Gentiles. What you doing there? And he was like, oh. So then he, out of people pleasing and not wanting to be judged by his friends, Peter goes and doesn't have meals with the Gentiles and now goes back over with his Jewish friends who are trying to keep them all separate and see the Gentiles as unclean, not okay anymore. And then Barnabas, and because Peter's a leader of the church, Barnabas even, and he falls into hypocrisy. Barnabas does too, and other people do. This is like part of the trouble of in the trap that leaders have to be careful of, is that when they want to please other leaders or other groups and they know better, and then they go back to maybe old ways to seek approval, they have just not only hurt themselves, but they've taken other people with them. They've turned themselves and other people back into turned themselves into hypocrites. And Paul, because he is so like confident in his faith, he's been walking it out, living the message of grace, exercising it everywhere he goes. He pulls Peter. He doesn't even pull him aside. I mean, he pulls him aside, but in front of people, and says, no, this is not the message of Christ. This is not the good news. People are not saved by the law. They're not saved by being circumcised. They are saved through faith alone. And you are going and messing that up, and you're going back and trying to put laws into place. And that is not the good news. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was when I saw the number of years, I was just like, whoa, do I have that kind of patience? Working on it. Because when you're zealous for something too, and you're so excited when you come into new understandings, it's so interesting within the world of faith and love and grace. The more you realize, wow, I have to be really careful here. When I was new about other things, maybe a behavior change I made, I did that as an early non-drinker. I went around telling everybody, what you're doing to yourself, right? Like, what that stuff is. And now I've learned to temper that and have grace for people where they are. They're not going to hear my message if I come at them finger wagging. I need to just be the message. I can keep my mouth shut. My actions speak louder than words. And then when I have an opening and then people are curious and they come to me, that's a whole different ballgame. But I can meet people where they are. And Paul talked a lot about this especially in his first letter to the Corinthians, this is again, we people, we like to make each other happy, and we can compromise our virtues, our beliefs, God, and not just ours, but God's. We corrupt God's message when we're not careful and patient as we mature and grow in our faith. And that's why one of the virtues and the fruits of love, true love, agape, God's love, is patience. And Paul is demonstrating that to us now in this first part of Galatians. So anyway, rise and shine. It is chilly here. My hands are cold. I'm going to go right and warm up, and I'm going to have a great day and rise and shine together. So let me know what you think about Galatians chapters 1 and 2. All right, bye.